Good morning, everyone. My name is Chet Linton. I'm the CEO of the School Improvement Network, and our product is listed as Edivate, which it is. But I'm going to take a little higher level approach and share some of the shifts that we're seeing in the professional learning market. I know that many of you are in this space or considering getting into it. We've been very focused. I've actually been in the space since 1991. And yeah, I'm kind of the old dog in the room when it comes to technology and education. But I'll walk you through some of the things that we're seeing and especially points that you need to be aware of as you're considering some of the changes that are going on. So to remind you of some of the information you may be aware of or share, this space is an $18 billion market. Thanks to Gates, there's been a lot of controversy over the years. Is it $4 billion or is it $44 billion? But the Gates Foundation verified, hey, it's $18 billion. About $15 billion stays within districts, and that leaves about $3 billion that gets pushed out to the market. $2.1 billion of that spent on spray and pray, sit and get, and drive-by PD, the traditional models that have now been technically outlawed in ESSA. No longer can we have drive-by PD, which is one-day or multi-day workshops. So big changes. And then there's about $1 billion that's spent on other programs and other products and resources. Also in this space, what's important to know, for the last 35 years, teachers have generally been frustrated with professional learning options that they have. And so this, as we know the size of the market and understand it and realize that teachers are generally frustrated, there is a big opportunity for disruption for the right resources, the right products, and the right approach. And there are these huge changes that are monumental right now that are going on. Now, one that was very impactful that you've probably never thought about is the Chicago teacher strike. How many of you know about it or remember it, right? It was big. It was influential. And from that day forward, we saw large systems and states begin to talk about growth and change the way they talk about evaluation, which has had a great influence in ESSA and a lot of the other dialogue that's going on. So the shifts that we're seeing right now, very physically seen, in fact, at the state level in large districts, dialogue shifting to growth. What does this look like? What does this mean for our teachers? We need to get away from anything that's perceived to be punitive. And so now we're hearing and seeing discussions about skills acquisition, true personalization. Of course, that's a big part of ESSA. What does active engagement really look like for teachers? We talk about it a lot for students, but if teachers cannot do this, how on earth are they ever going to help their students? And so we've had events at our office just across the street with AASA and CCSSO and have continued to hear this is critical, but how do we address the needs of the teacher? And of course, everything must be teacher friendly. One of the other big shifts that we're seeing right now is almost half of the states in the country are considering relicensure and what that really means. How do we shift policy? How do we align competency and what our teachers actually do with the market and be aligned with the law, even though there's some of the compliance components are being pulled out? This is a big issue. 15 states have submitted their plans to the Department of Education and are waiting approval. But this is a big opportunity that we're seeing states say, now is the time to do things differently and change the way we approach the market. And truth be told, there are very few options for them to turn to that enable them to address this issue. So additional shifts that we're seeing now as states talk about this and districts is moving out of summative assessments of what teachers are learning to really more formative, all about assessment for learning rather than assessment of learning. Big shifts. Now, as we look at this, this is actually data from a study that was done by several 100,000 teachers that gave feedback. And if you look at the traditional column, with time here, we won't go through all of these items, but the traditional professional development or form of the sit and get, spray and pray, as I mentioned, is under the traditional column. Everything in the right column right now out in the market is very disruptive, focusing on teacher growth and competency. Looking at how do we look at what a teacher does formatively? Can we see evidence that a teacher is actually proficient or has even mastered a state standard? Is it even possible? The rubrics are available, but does the technology exist that allows teachers to actually do that? So now they're very motivated in the way they approach things. As I think most of you are aware, this market has been very driven by administrators at the state, district, and school level making decisions and then handing those resources to teachers to say, this is what we want you to do. It's not very motivating, and I think it's one of the things that have led to teachers being very frustrated, even with the advent and some of the great innovations that are in the market now to be utilized. So we're seeing these shifts happen rapidly. For us, the way we're approaching this, we have what's called the growth and competency system, and we're very focused on, one, giving teachers ways in which they can assess themselves and or their peers or utilize observations that may be in existence. We have tools that allow them to do this as well. The second focus is on learning. How do they approach it? What pathway do they take? And where do they end up as it relates to indicators within standards? And then how do we recognize that? And then the third piece is actually giving them opportunities to practice. So we have a resource or product that we call Edivate Review, which allows teachers to videotape themselves, post it, and then give feedback to each other, either from their peers or their administrators or coaches, whoever it may be, or in groups, or the best way that they feel that helps them get the support they need. And then, of course, we award those with micro-credentials. Now, this conference, there's been a lot of talk about micro-credentials and badges. The one thing that we've learned over the last year, there are a lot of what I call trinkets and trash beginning to show up. You know, it's, hey, I can get a badge. We feel that the most important thing to do is have a very learning-focused micro-credential that's meaningful to administrators, where teachers can actually get credit and have value from what they're receiving. And of course, then ways to track that is critical. So a quick process again: assess, whether that's self or with peers, learn, practice, and then evidence is submitted, evaluated, and then teachers can be awarded micro-credentials that either at the proficiency or mastery level, or depending on wherever they may be. So this becomes very motivating to teachers, and we believe that there is an opportunity to disrupt what's gone on, including ourselves and the way we've approached things for the last decade, as well as other resources that are out in the market right now because of the policy changes and support that are currently going on that have happened in the last 12 months and that we see shifting the market right now because of the way states are reacting. And then finally, for us, we believe that if you're in this space, you need to be able to prove that you can get results. We have 12, and of course it's part of ESSA, right? Evidence-based professional learning. So our resources are designed to get results. We've got a proven track record. We have 12 peer-reviewed studies that have been published. And so not only short-term do we have impact with increases in reading and math and teacher retention and et cetera, but also longitudinally we have great impact over time with districts that use our resources. These studies have included 350 schools to almost 3,000 schools. So we look at urban, suburban, and rural impact. So we would love to find groups that would like to partner with us, whether it's from a content standpoint or getting creative in ways to really drive the market and disrupt it in ways to be very successful and impactful. Thank you.